The following is rated M. What you're about to watch contains explicit language, adult themes, violence, and may not be suitable for viewers under 18. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Hello, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow, and this is not going to be a very long video. At least I don't intend for this to be long. We'll see how this goes when I complete this. Hopefully it is not as long as some of my usual videos go, about 30-40 minutes talking about something else, because I still think of things I want to say and I put them in there because, hey, did I say this, did I say that, and boom, you get a 30-minute long video. And this is because I'm talking once more about Cyberpunk 2077 and the controversies surrounding it. Yes, the controversies, because it seems like CD Projekt Red cannot get the games media off of its back. It seems as though they are destined, they are really up for destroying the very foundation that this game is built upon for some reason. And I think I have the reason as to why. And if you have any thoughts in your mind that this is once more about the ad that I talked about in a previous video in which I talked about this game, then that's halfway that. But there was a bit of kerfuffle about John Walker and what he tweeted and what he posted on Rock Paper Shotgun, which is become a very near authoritarian website anymore. I'm not sure what's going on with it. It used to be so good at explaining both sides of an issue, but they seem to be taking one side and not really being nuanced, or not really having any distinction between different points of the same argument, different ways we can look at things. But John Walker had to delete a tweet about what a person said in regards to Matt Cox's article saying that Cyberpunk 2077 was racist because of the gangs or something like that. And apparently he answered, and then John Walker came in and tried to smack him down with a tweet. Apparently that didn't work out that well. But then he deleted the tweet, said, "Oh, apologize, my bad," and then went on to state that Cyberpunk 2077 was the worst thing about the Steam sales charts for this month because, again, they were buying it about a year before it was set to release. The people who were interested in the game was already buying it. Obviously, you can make the case of don't pre-order video games and all that, and that's fair, but given as to what he was talking about in the context does matter. It seems to me is that that was not the only thing he was concerned about with people pre-ordering that game. Now, if you do want a breakdown of what exactly transpired there, I implore you to go watch Upperechelon Gaming's video about the details about this whole thing. He does a far better job than I ever could, because I'm trying to summarize this to get to what my point is. You go ahead and watch his video. I'll link it in the description below this video because it is a terrific video. It goes through all the points that was going on there. Now, granted, there's a little bit of bias there because he's coming at it from a different viewpoint, and maybe I share that viewpoint to some extent, and his channel can get a little bit more centrist than maybe some people who watch my channel might like, but at the same time, I'm more left of center as well, so that kind of balances itself out. But he does a great job in summarizing what this new situation is all about. He also has put up another video in which he goes into a theory that perhaps a lot of these media outlets are corroborating with each other and colluding with each other because they are in a way affiliated with the Epic Game Store, and the Epic Game Store is not a good friend of anybody, let's just say that. And CD Projekt Red is obviously not going to be going exclusive to the Epic Game Store by any stretch of the imagination. And of course, we all know CD Projekt Red also has their GOG store, which is a competitor to the Epic Game Store, and one of the most hyped games of 2020 is probably going to get GOG from its financial slump that they seem to be in right at the moment. Now, I'm not going to go too far into that. I'm not going to really delve into that. We already know that corporate media does have advertiser influence. We kind of already know that. And that might be an influence about what is going going on here. However, if you want to know more about that theory, you can go ahead and watch his video on that too. I'll post a link in the description below this video of that one as well. He's been doing a good job in talking about this whole thing that's been going down lately. And trust me, if the reasons why they are having a go at Cyberpunk 2077 is because they want to help out one of their advertisers, being the Epic Game Store, then holy hell, there's going to be a lot of more talk going down if that whole conspiracy has any legs. But I want to get into why all of this is going on, all of this media kerfuffle about Cyberpunk 2077 is going on. And it has something to do with the ad, as I said. It is a now infamous ad that people believed was transphobic, or at least the corporate media thought it was transphobic. One of my friends that I play with regularly had thought this was transphobic as well. And I do get that sentiment to some extent, because at first glance, yes, this would make you angry that somebody would be exploited in this way, especially someone who is of a minority status of identity. That could definitely set you aback a little bit. And if you were just looking at it for the first time, then yeah, of course, it's going to make you upset. It's going to make you angry. However, at the same time, let's keep in mind what I said in the previous video, in that original video that I talked in great length about that subject. It is that in fictional worlds, in worlds that try to immerse you into their environment, they are trying to elect an emotional response. That is the response that maybe they're trying to get out of you, is to make you angry, to make you upset, but maybe not in the way that the corporate media is attempting to say you should be upset about, of why you should be upset about it. But again, upon further investigation, and when you look into the interviews that CD Projekt Red had with Polygon, again, it's Polygon we're dealing with here. So kudos to them, I guess, for actually doing something right for a change. Yes, I hate Polygon with every fiber of my being, but they do have that broken clock syndrome that they're right at least twice in one day. They managed to get some answers from the CD Projekt Red people, and apparently that was something that I don't think Polygon was expecting. And maybe Polygon would have thought twice before interviewing her, because I do believe what she said makes me think of this ad, and the subsequent attacks on this game make more sense. When you think about what the corporate media has done in order to capitalize on what we call outrage culture, whether it be from the right wing or the left wing, the media has definitely capitalized on this newfound interest in getting outraged, in getting offended by a lot of things. Now, whether or not it's justified to be offended by something or not, it's not relevant at that stage. It is a notion of what we do about it. And right now, our mindset is to become enraged, become angry. And there are people who are feeding into it. By people, I mean the corporate outlets, because they see what is going on. And by continuing to allow this to go on and to feed into it, they see that the people who are getting outraged, who are getting angry, will click on the articles that share their viewpoint, that confirm their bias. And in doing that, they get the page clicks and thus the ad revenue. Now, we're not talking about things like MSNBC or CNN or stuff like that. That's a whole different animal, and they wish that YouTube bloggers didn't exist at all. We're talking about the people like Kotaku, the people like Rock Paper Shotgun, who have been blogging about these types of issues for a while now, but they have not been sincere in my book. They have not looked at all the different avenues. They have taken a side, and it's more or less the most, and it's the side of the advertisers. They have exploited these issues. They have exploited that in such a way that when you look at them, you obviously see that they don't really care about whether or not female employees get better pay or get better or equal chances at employment in game markets or have equal representation. They are seeing that, hey, we are outraged, and they want to feed into it. They don't want to see people listening to each other, thoughtful deliberation taking shape. They don't want to see a nuanced debate about any kind of topic. They want to feed into the gravy train, because as long as it keeps going, as it did when President Bush said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and everybody suddenly went on the conservative gravy train there. Remember that in 2003, 2004, everybody said, oh, we had weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, no, they didn't. Iraq hated Al-Qaeda much as we did. But that goes for another video. What I want to get at is that the corporate media seems to want to go with the tide. They're not trying to change anything. They're not trying to do anything of value. They're just trying to get you to click their page so they can get their ad revenue. And right now, because we're in a mindset of progressivism and the Me Too movement and the idea that equality needs to happen, and yes, it does need to happen. Let's not get anybody backwards about this. What the corporate media has done is to essentially try to capitalize on that by just feeding it just enough to where it doesn't seem as though they're feeding into it to the point where outrage starts to take hold. And the idea of putting everybody into a box who has any kind of nuance whatsoever, putting everybody into a simple box and give everyone a label, regardless of if it's warranted or not. They don't want to believe it themselves half the time, because what they're doing is trying to appease to an advertiser. They're getting ad revenue. They're answering to a higher power. That's what is going on. So when Cyberpunk 2077 is revealed and you see that this person who's in this ad getting theoretically exploited, remember, we don't know the significance of the ad in the context of the game. This could be a model that enjoys showing off somebody who we meet in game and stuff like that. Go watch my previous video on that subject to get into discussions about that. When we see something like that, and then we see that interview, that might show us that CD Projekt Red might be trying to tell us something about what they believe is going on in this outrage culture and how the media is feeding into it. Because maybe they believe that the media is exploiting the LGBTQ community into clicking their sites in order to generate ad revenue by foxing that they are actually caring about these issues or actually doing anything to help with these issues. And thus, when you see that interview with the person that's saying that they would be angry if they saw someone being exploited just to sell you a product, isn't that what these media outlets are doing? Trying to sell you their blog? Or trying to sell you something that they are trying to advertise in order to get a cut of the revenue that an advertiser would get from a commission or something like that? Isn't that what the media outlets are essentially doing? That's what we call clickbait. That's what we call flame bait, clickbait advertising. That's what we call that. That's why we call it that. That's why we are so concerned about it. It's not because they're saying anything about racism or sexism or equal representation in gaming. It's that we don't think they really do care about it. And thus, maybe they're scared that CD Projekt Red is essentially exposing that. It's showing you just what exactly they believe is really going on. And they don't want you to see that. They don't want you to believe that. They want you to still buy into that. But unfortunately for them, the issue of outrage culture is starting to pick up some steam. How outrage culture works is starting to get criticism because they believe that it is because of that that Donald Trump got elected, that he rose from the outrage culture, that people were starting to get tired of people bashing one another when they should belong to the same main political party. Talk bad about the Republicans all you want, but the one thing that they have been able to do all this time is to stay united, even though they don't always agree with one another. When it comes time to vote on whatever it is, they seem to be completely united. And compare it with the Democrats right now. How many different avenues, how many different divisions of the Democratic Party are there right now? Like 10, 12, a million? And none of them can find any kind of common ground. They all hate one another. And they just want everybody else to go away and to never bother them ever again. They are essentially defranchising them when they can't afford to do that. And it frustrates the hell out of people, because how are you going to defeat a common enemy if you can't get on the same page? If you can't coexist even in the slightest bit with anybody in your own party, How in the world are you able to beat the other party if you can't get within your own party any kind of common ground, or refuse to find any common ground? And it's so frustrating, and that is why this whole thing of outrage culture has its detractors and its critics. And that's what these outlets are scared of right now. That outrage culture is starting to get venomously criticized as dividing the country as much as Donald Trump is right now. And this is not just something that has happened recently. This has been happening for about 5, 6, maybe 10 years now that we have seen this happen. And to their credit, yes, we should be concerned about things like equal representation. We should be concerned about things like equal pay and chances to get employment. One of the things that I believe we should be doing in order to change the landscape of the gaming industry to be more comforting to women is to employ more female game developers and to have them have important roles in planning games and to making video games. Whether or not it's a male or female game protagonist, that male protagonist could be made by a female game developer. It could be created by a female. And to me, that could be more important than having a male or female protagonist in a video game, because they could be seen as equals. People work together when you have different perspectives, when you have different mindsets. You find common ground. You find a point where you can work together. Many of these game companies are not bad game companies when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah, we can talk about loot boxes and day one DLC and stuff like that. You can talk about that all day, but the one thing that I keep seeing all the time is that many major video games have so many people working on one game. And you can definitely know that a game company would not get that game out if they were completely at odds and everybody was trying to hit on one another. And no one could get along because of the race, gender, creed, or sexual orientation, or what have you. I didn't want to make a long video, so I'll end it on this. I think we need to look at the broader picture here. And this has to do more with Cyberpunk 2077 and the ad and the subsequent fallout from all the controversies or the non-controversies. I think it has more to do with the media realizing that they are losing their grip on the people who thought they could go to them for being their allies in representation, because it didn't look like they were in it to actually change the industry. They were just looking at it for page clicks. And CD Projekt Red might be exposing it way too much for their liking, so obviously they're going to try to find a way to run hit pieces. They're going to try to find reasons to say that you should not play this game. And they are failing miserably, or they should be failing miserably. We should not be falling for it. That's why you have people like us on YouTube. That's why you also see the media outlets suddenly freaking out on YouTube lately, because they know that they are losing their place. They are losing bad to people who are more trustworthy, who will tell you what they really think, even if you don't always agree with them. And I think the way that CD Projekt Red is doing this does show that effectively. I think this world will show that effectively, and because of that, I think it's going to be a terrific game. It's going to send messages that you don't know that they're sending, and when you get them, you don't even know you need them. I don't think it is being insensitive to minority groups. I think it is showing that, yes, we are getting exploited by the corporate state. And if we don't call it out in a rational and justified way, then it's going to just grow and grow and grow until it's going to consume us all. I think CD Projekt Red is doing a terrific job here. I think they need to keep doing it. Again, don't go too far with it, don't get crazy with it, and don't do shock value for the sake of having shock value. Have a real message, have a clear message that you want to send to people, even though they might not necessarily get it right away, or they might not necessarily agree with it right away. Thank you very much for listening to this, as you should, because as President Obama, the former president of the United States, has said, we do have to end up listening to one another. We can become engaged, we can become involved without delving into what we are delving into now. Please leave a comment down below about what you thought about what I said. Do you agree or disagree? And what are your thoughts about the CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk 2077 game and the conflicting scenes that we are having such a debate about? Maybe the fact that we're having such a debate are proving that they did something right. Of course, if you like the structure and the content of this video and the way I presented it, please give it a thumbs up and please go and share the video. It really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm and gets me more subscribers, and please do subscribe for more Geek Gaming Culture. I will see you next time. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.